Hey everybody, welcome to the shop here at Tucson Acres. So if you hadn't seen it, I've already made 2 videos of the AVE Skookum knife, and honestly, overall, I love it, okay? However, I've run into a very consistent problem I'm having with it. Now, AVE, he's no dummy. He's probably been through all of the variations of how to go about making this thing, and it probably just worked best for his circumstances or his uses. I have gotten a few other comments saying that they're having the same kind of issue I have, and the issue is this wave spring that's in here, it gets a couple grains of sand in it and it jams it up where you can't use the knife. Right after the last video that I made, I got done tilling up the garden, and I pulled the tractor up to the barn here and I'm cleaning off the tiller, and there was a huge wad of grass and hay stuck in there. So I pull out my trusty knife and zip it all the way to extended and start cutting that stuff out of there, and then I couldn't retract it. Just that one use rendered this thing unusable. Not unusable, but you know what I mean. So I've been kicking it around in my head trying to figure out what I'm going to do, and I just spent the last 30 minutes playing around here. For those that don't know, there's several different kinds of springs. Let me show you. So he uses this multi-layered wave spring, and wave springs have, as the name implies, little waves in between them. And it could be one layer or multi-layers, like this one is a multi-layered wave spring. And if I had to guess, I would say to get the amount of force he was looking for the spring compression, you know, like maybe a pound or 2 of spring compression, he probably had to go with a couple layers on this spring. So that all makes sense to me, and I get it. I understand it. It's just that doesn't leave much room in there once it's compressed. I mean, we're talking a couple thou. I don't know. Let me, I got my caliper sitting here somewheres. So uncompressed, we're looking at 14 or 0.14, 0.145, somewhere in that ballpark. All right, now we'll compress it all the way. So we got, what is that, 10 thou? No, 100 thou, sorry. 100 thou compression, approximately. So 1/10 of an inch. It's not a lot of space. A couple grains of sand can be, you know, up to almost 1/10 of an inch all by itself, like 0.80 or 0.08 for a single grain of sand. That takes up virtually all of the room here. Then when we're looking at the lip that we're trying to grab on, this lip right in here, that's what grabs our actual lock mechanism. So anyway, playing around, I went through my shoebox of special washers, and I do have a couple wave springs that were in there. And this one's obviously too small, but this one here, I was thinking maybe I could mill out the middle and take off the edge, because not only do you have to get it to the right diameter to fit on the button, you also have to make sure you're at the right diameter to fit within the slot. So this slot in here, from edge to edge, right there to right about there, has to be exact as well. And that's what this spring is. It fits right in there. So, and you can see how thin that edge is. So that means I would have had to work this thing down to almost nothing. And then at that point, it's going to be probably too weak. So I was trying to figure out what other way I could go about doing this. And they do make, like, this is a 2-wave, you know, just a single curve. They make 3 and 4 wave, and they also make what's called a conical or a Belleville spring, which looks more like a cone, which would be similar to that, how it's cone shaped, but this is just a washer, it's not a spring. But I don't have anything like that, and even if I did, I'd be running into the same problem. So, looking at the rest of it, there is a hole in here. Now, I'm sure he thought about this and had his own reason for not doing it, and honestly, I don't even know if it's gonna work yet. But I was like, crap, let me just stuff a regular spring inside of there. So I tried it. I cut a bunch of small pieces like this, dropped it down in there like that, and tried it out just like that. Now the problem with this, well, at least this particular spring, the spring itself is too thick. The material is too thick come on, focus. The material is too thick, so even just 2 loops of that is too much space to fit inside of there. So I tried a thinner spring. I've got this really thin spring here, and I cut off a small chunk of it, just the end of it here, tiny, stuffed that in here, and it was still too thick, so I did it again, cut another ring off of it, got it to where it was pretty close, like that, excuse me, like that. Get our button on here, and even with that in there, it doesn't close far enough to actually slip in between there like it's supposed to. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. So even there, compressed as far as it can go, it's still too tight because of the loops of the spring in there. So that's probably one of the reasons why he didn't go with that. I mean, you can see that's only a couple wraps of that spring, and it's even where some of it can collapse inside of itself because it's kind of conical. Gets smaller as it gets to the end. So what was next, I got to looking at the button in the hole. I was like, well, crap, I need more room in that hole. Yeah. All right, this button, the bottom piece, doesn't even bottom out in there. Like, you gotta be kidding me. All right, so I measured it. Our total measurement here, call it 23 or 230,000, right? All right, now let's do this way, 12. Let's try it again. 12, all right, 0.12. So that gives me, you know, almost 1/10 of an inch that I can take off on the inside of that hole, depth-wise, to get more wraps of a spring in there to hopefully make it collapse the way it's supposed to. So that's what I'm about to try. Let's see if it works. Now, when it comes to CNC or milling or lathe work, machinist work, I am a noob at best, probably even worse because I have the tools, but I don't know how to use them. Bottomed out, we'll zero it. So now basically I want to go, what, 10 thou, I think is what I said? No, 0.1 inches. Go 0.1 further. All right, let's try it. We're at the bottom. We're at 0.6 or 0.06, 0.07, being very gentle. 0.08, 9. There we go. 0.098, I'm gonna call that good. Didn't bust through, awesome. Worked out pretty good, I'd say. So the hole's definitely deeper now. And I didn't really get much wobble there either, so cool. You know, before I go get all nutso with the lathe, the bottom of that hole actually looks pretty okay. I'm kind of curious if it'll just work as is. This chunk of spring is probably too long, but it's worth a shot. Yeah, definitely too long. It doesn't squeeze together all the way. I could take one of these other chunks, and just so you can see, now it bottoms out completely. So I know there's plenty of extra space in there. That one's gonna be too big, that one's probably not strong enough, but let's try it. I don't know, that gives some pretty good feedback there. Let's try that. If I'm gonna do that, I wanna use it to where the flat side is up. So there's the flat side, and then there's the side that I cut off. So I'll put the cut off side down into the button. Yeah, that way it sits flush on the bottom pin. That's a little bit loose. But I'm still getting some pretty good feedback. Yeah, I think I could probably go a little bit tougher spring in there, but it's definitely locking the way it's supposed to. You can see in the end here, there is definitely a much larger gap in there where that spring used to be. Right down in there. And that's what I believe was binding it up. I feel like we could get a little bit more spring in there, but I don't want to mess that up either. That is honestly probably good enough, to tell you the truth. I kind of like that. Crap, don't even have to worry about it falling out. I'll bet if you put a little dab of grease in there, that would keep that spring in there while you're changing out blades. That might be one of the advantages of that wave spring, is that it helps stabilize this thing so it's not wobbly like that. And see, just every time I do it, the button ends up a little cantered and it's not centered properly. And that's where the wave spring would definitely make a difference. I'm gonna try one heavier spring. That's probably too much there, I almost guarantee. Yeah, the even pressure of that wave spring definitely helps it stay parallel and clip in properly. But here's the problem with it. It's already gummed up. Yeah, it does not like that at all. And that's super dry sand too. Let's try the other spring now with some dirt. Didn't get gummed up. Now obviously the blade tolerances in here is pretty bad, or pretty tight, so having that, you know, when it's full like that, it's going to be gummed up no matter what because the blade's getting chewed up. But almost immediately frees up with this internal spring. Let's do it one more time with the wave spring. Well, at least we don't have to worry about that spring falling out. It's already locked. I mean, holy cow. Can't move it at all like that. Okay, so just knocking that dirt out of there. If that dirt was wet, there's no way it would come out that easy. I'll do it one more time and try to lock up that other one, completely lock it up like this one just did. So after watching playback here, I noticed that the space where the wave spring goes, whether the spring is there or not, it's susceptible to debris collecting there. And if any debris is, you know, where that wave spring goes, it's going to stop the button from being depressed. So now I'm thinking that maybe for the next video, I'm going to go ahead and try to find some sort of like foam washer that will keep debris out from underneath that button. That way, no matter what debris gets in there, the button can still be depressed. Well, I think it's still, I don't know. I don't know if I want to call that better or not. The other part of that might just be the dirt getting into those crevices in there, just locking the button up no matter what. That's weird. Yep, just locks it right up every time. So that did loosen up fairly quickly. I'm going to try the wave spring again. Yeah, still same as the other one. Still, yeah, the other one definitely frees up quicker. I'm not saying it's better. Just got to knock the crud out of there in order to get it to free up. So I'm gonna stick with that other one for now and hope to not lose my wave spring just in case. It definitely frees up quicker, no doubt. At least in my mind. It does not seat as nicely every time. It takes a, you know, like right there, it's not seated properly. Just a quick bump will fix that, but the wave, you know, AVE's design with the wave spring definitely seats nicer each time, but I think it clogs up easier as well. So hopefully he can check this out and chime in with his thoughts. I'd love to hear. You know, the easiest way to avoid this is just to not get dirt in your knife. You know, I mean, if I had a nice pocket knife, I wouldn't normally be burying it in dirt, but then again, sometimes I do. You know, whether I'm out hunting or skinning an animal that lands on the ground. Now, granted, that's not what this is for, but, you know, it is a utility knife. It's made to do dirty jobs sometimes. So, yeah, the wave spring definitely has a better fit, no doubt, but it clogs up easier in my experiment. So I'm gonna leave it like this just because it does clear out quicker, just a couple quick taps. If it does get jammed up, a couple quick taps. And yeah, and I don't really mind having that button do that to me almost every single time, you know, get off center like, well, okay, of course now I can't get it to do it, but there, like that. It's still not going anywhere, and a light push in either direction gets it to fully seat. So I'm not worried about that. I'm not worried about it not locking for me. And honestly, a better spring, you know, maybe a thinner, stiffer spring where you could get a couple extra wraps in there might work better for keeping it seated properly. That could definitely work. Or maybe a three-wave spring or a three-sided wave spring, something that you know, is very shallow, doesn't take up a lot of space, but it'll still give you a decent amount of feedback. So I'll probably look into that. I'll take the measurements of this spring and go ahead and see if I can't order a couple, you know, 3- and 4-sided wave springs, a single layer. That way we don't have, I don't know, was there 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wraps on this one? It's honestly just a lot of material. So that material, when you scrunch it down or squeeze it down, it takes up a lot of space. That space is easily taken up by a grain or two of sand in there as well. So that's all I got for you today. Got any thoughts on this guy? Go ahead and throw something in the comments. Again, hopefully AVE can check this out and let us know what you think. And there was a comment on one of my other videos about bluing the stainless, and if anybody's got any experience with that or doing it, please go ahead and throw something in the comments as well. I don't think I would do it to mine now just because I've got so much time into cleaning it and sanding it and polishing it, and but I'd still like to see it. And if you can send me a photo or two at tusaacres@gmail.com, I'll go ahead and put it in the next video. So hey, thanks for watching. Hit the thumbs up button, the subscribe button, and we'll see you on the next one.